All right, we're going to talk some Haason Reddick replacements on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Players that the Eagles can sign, draft, and utilize after trading Haason Reddick to the Jets. And I get it. A lot of fans did not like that move. Here are the trade details in case you missed them. The New York Jets receiving one of the top edge rushers in the game and a player who is incredibly productive for Philadelphia in his 2 seasons with the Birds, and Philadelphia receiving a 2026 third-round pick, which could become a second if a couple of things happen. This year, Haason Reddick plays 67.5% of the snaps or he has 10 sacks. As far as that compensation goes, and the trade yielding a third-round pick turning into a second-round pick, I feel good about Haason Reddick getting 10-plus sacks. He's done that in each of the last 4 campaigns: Arizona, Carolina, Philadelphia, all of those stops. That's really how he's rounded into form into being one of the top edge rushers in the National Football League. And I was traveling to Lancaster, Pennsylvania on Friday when the news broke. That's why producer Chip hopped in front of the camera. He did a great job. Appreciate everybody for supporting him here on the channel. And here are my thoughts on the trade that I haven't really been able to talk about on air. It's a big risk for the Eagles. You're getting rid of a proven commodity and a player who's been incredibly productive, and now you're relying on young and unproven players. And then, of course, some veterans in Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham who you know who they are and what they're going to bring to the field as of right now. But as far as Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith and Zack Baun goes, Baun's been a bust as a former third-round pick. Nolan Smith had less than 100 pass rush snaps as a rookie, first-round pick coming out of Georgia. And Bryce Huff has been in the league for 4 years. He's an ascending player, had a career-high 10 sacks last year, but 1 solid year of production, and he's not good against the run. And I get it. Haason Reddick, not elite against the run either, but I thought last year started to make some strides in that area. And it's very rare for Howie Roseman to go this route. He puts a premium price tag and a premium importance on getting after the quarterback, building up the defensive line, having upper echelon edge rushers. He had one, and then he traded him away. And it's not like Haason Reddick signed a contract extension with the New York Jets. The value back, it's okay. I just thought that the asking price from Philadelphia's standpoint from Reddick's camp was too high. Howard Eskin even said it's way more than $20 million, and I think $20 million is a little bit too much, but at the same time, that Brian Burns trade, him getting $28 million, when Reddick's been the better player, changed the market and flipped it on its head. But what if I told you that the Eagles traded away Haason Reddick, and they didn't give him that contract extension because they want to allocate those dollars for Devontae Smith? Are you okay with keeping Devontae Smith and not Haason Reddick? What if you had to choose between the two? I'd probably go with Devontae Smith. Defense is important, offense really important, and the Eagles finally hit on a wide receiver who's been extremely productive his first 3 years. The internal replacements, let's get to that list first. It's going to be Bryce Huff, Zack Baun, Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, and Brandon Graham. You sign Huff as an unrestricted free agent, Zack Baun in free agency, Nolan Smith going into year 2, you restructure the deal for Sweat, and then Brandon Graham coming back for a 15th and most likely final season. The thought process here maybe from Howie Roseman. Did the Eagles just want to get younger at the edge rusher spot, combining 2 key focal points, Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff? Nolan Smith going into year 2, and Huff, even though this is going to be year 5, 25 years old, and then Haason Reddick, 29 years old. So Huff is going to be entering his age 26 season, Reddick entering his age 30 season. And the numbers from Bryce Huff pretty damn good. He had more than 50 pressures this past year, 10 sacks, 10 TFLs, 21 quarterback hits. He's really good at getting after the quarterback, and he's a Howie Roseman analytical type of player who you're going to give a salary of $17 million per year to. That's pretty much the guaranteed money there, and you're hoping that he's going to be able to continue that upward trajectory. But it's a risk because look at the numbers here. UDFA out of Memphis, Really good story who's developed in a really good defensive scheme, but 2 sacks, 3.5, and then he had that breakout year with 10. Can he duplicate that success? But you're not just hoping for that. You're hoping that he duplicates that success from 2023, but he grows on that success and becomes even better to give you numbers that you would expect from Haason Reddick, because Reddick and Vic Fangio's defense, I was starting to get pretty excited about that. Let's ask you this. Have some fun with this. Predict it down in the comment section. How many sacks will Bryce Huff have in year 1 with the Philadelphia Eagles? Drop me a figure down below in the comment section. As for Zack Baun, spent a couple of moments talking about him. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 71.1 last year. Keep in mind this only came on 137 pass rush snaps. Solid run defense grade. Solid pass rush grade. 15 pressures on 137 pass rush snaps isn't bad, nor is the 11 hurries. He had 2 sacks and 4 quarterback hits. It's not a large sample size for a player who was drafted in the 3rd round, didn't quite live up to expectations that the Saints had for him. But the Eagles have made the Zack Baun, Andrew Van Ginkel comparison. And Van Ginkel had a breakout year for Vic Fangio with the Miami Dolphins last year. Prior to that, never really did anything that was overly impressive, nor has Zack Baun. But the Eagles have said, we think that Zack Baun pretty much can be an Andrew Van Ginkel type of player where Vic Fangio is able to bring the best out of him. Zack Baun is not an off-ball coverage linebacker. He's going to be used as a blitzer and pass rusher like Andrew Van Ginkel, who last year was one of the highest graded edge rushers in the game. Overall grade of 91.1, run defense grade 76.3, a pass rush grade of 90.6. He had 6 sacks, 53 pressures. That is right in the range of what Bryce Huff had and what Josh Sweat had last year, and 32 hurries. Those numbers are nothing to scoff at, and this is an example of what quality coaching can do. I also think at the same time, while we might be hopeful that Baun can become a Van Ginkel type, it's a stretch to rely and bank and count on Baun in a significant way, making that type of leap, because he's come nowhere close to having that type of leap. Plenty more to get to. Don't you go anywhere. Continue to hang out with me here on Eagles Now. But if you want to hang out at a game, you want to hang out at a concert, comedy show, theater event, make sure you download the Game Time app. You're guaranteed to get the best seats at the lowest price guaranteed. And what's great about the Game Time app, the prices drop as the event gets closer. You can get in the door for the most affordable price and the most trustworthy app that you can use as far as buying tickets. It's all about that Game Time action, boss. You can get $20 off by using the code CHATSPORTS. NFL season obviously in the rear view. Philadelphia 76ers stretch run of the regular season. Philadelphia Phillies just began the regular season. A little bit of a disappointing opening weekend against the Atlanta Braves. They won 1 of 3 games in that first series. Could have won all 3. And then they dropped that Monday game in extra innings to the Cincinnati Reds. You want to go to a Reds-Phillies game? Tickets still available as we speak, especially for tomorrow's game, which is that Wednesday afternoon tilt. And what's great, you see where you'll be sitting, the vantage point from those seats, and the price point as well. Use the code CHATSPORTS. That is the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS. Terms obviously apply here for $20 off your ticketing purchase. And like I said, it's not just sporting events. You can go to comedy shows, you can go to concerts, theater, plenty more. $20 off, code CHATSPORTS. More internal replacements here. Let's talk about Nolan Smith. He only had 91 pass rushing snaps in 2023 as a rookie. Wasn't really utilized until the back end of the year when he started to earn his keep and get some more playing time. Had that shoulder injury as well, which was a little bit of an issue for him in his rookie campaign. A little bit banged up at Georgia too. But he did undergo a procedure so that he could take on a little bit more of a workload. But this is why I'm talking about trading away Haason Reddick and relying on these underutilized players and under-experienced players why I called it a risk, because they are unknown commodities. But I think the Eagles had a little bit of foresight here in drafting Nolan Smith. They understood, okay, Haason Reddick, we love him. He's been productive. But let's draft his potential replacement. And let's have a contingency plan in place in case we can't afford Reddick as he gets a little bit older and very expensive. Relative athletic score here at the NFL Combine for both Reddick and Smith. Both very, very similar players in the pre-draft process. A lot of people didn't like the size of Nolan Smith coming out of Georgia. They said that he was undersized. Well, look at how he compared to Haason Reddick. Haason Reddick, 6'1", 237. Nolan Smith, 6 foot, 238. The 40-yard dash is where Nolan Smith had the edge, and very impressive edge here. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash. Great pursuit speed, great speed to just get after the quarterback in general. Haason Reddick coming out of Temple clocked a 4.52 40-yard dash. All of that green there, very elite athletes, and Nolan Smith earned a better relative athletic score on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to Reddick, 9.2 to a 9.01. So they're similar players with good speed, good burst, good bend, very quick. Arm size is almost identical. But here's the thing. Haason Reddick was a late bloomer. Can Nolan Smith also be a little bit of a late bloomer? But he doesn't have a lot of time on his side. He has to be able to develop as soon as possible for this Eagles team to be successful, and he's going to have to turn in a big year too, whereas Reddick, it took him a little bit longer to be an impact player in this league. Josh Sweat, numbers in 2023, less than what they were in 2022 in general, but still a pretty productive season here. Had a pass rush grade of 74.1, overall grade 68.3, 68 pressures, 45 hurries, more than he had in 2022 when he had 11 sacks, but the sack numbers were cut in half. And then Brandon Graham, he graded out pretty well. Year 15, he's going to be a situational pass rusher, and I'm interested to see, honestly, how much of a scheme fit he is under Vic Fangio. But in a limited amount of snaps, the numbers here are pretty good. Overall grade of 80, pass rush grade 78.5, still turned in 29 pressures, 23 hurries, and 3 sacks. You know what Sweat and Graham are by now. And, of course, Josh Sweat is going to play a lot more as compared to Brandon Graham, and even with Zack Baun, and even with Bryce Huff. Josh Sweat's going to get ample opportunities to be a part of this defense, traditional defensive end, who's still a really good player in this league. Where could the Eagles go externally? We just covered the internal options. These are the top free agent pass rushers here, still left available in free agency. A player who I like is Mike Danna from the Kansas City Chiefs. Emmanuel Ogbah from Miami. Carl Lawson played last year with the New York Jets. Randy Gregory was a situational player with the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of people familiar with him from his days with the Dallas Cowboys. And then you have Yannick Ngakoue, who has been a very, very productive player as far as sacks go throughout his entire career. Double-digit sack maven. Last year did get hurt. He is awful against the run. But Mike Danna, his career so far, 2.5 sacks, 3 sacks, 5 sacks, 6.5 sacks. He has experience as a right defensive end, left defensive end. He could be a good scheme fit for Philadelphia. It's actually pretty interesting that he's still available in free agency. He's more of a known commodity as compared to some of the internal options that we talked about here, and he's been a productive player. Top edge rushers in the NFL draft. These are, of course, players who could fall to the Eagles at number 22. Obviously, Jared Verse, some of those other players are going to be drafted before the Eagles are on the clock at number 22, barring a massive trade-up, which I don't think is in the cards for Philadelphia here and Howie Roseman. You have Latu out of UCLA, very productive player, awesome athlete, but the neck concern's a big concern for me. Chop Robinson out of Penn State, Darius Robinson out of Mizzou, a little bit of a late bloomer, but really good player this past year for the Tigers. Marshawn Kneeland out of Western Michigan. And then Adisa Isaac has kind of fallen under the radar a little bit. I think he's going to be a day 2, round 2 target. Chop Robinson getting a lot of the buzz, but Isaac can certainly play. And I kind of compare him to a fellow Penn Stater in Adisa Owe. Didn't have great sack numbers, but very similar athletes. On this list here, Chop Robinson is my favorite prospect that I think is more in play now for Philadelphia with the 22nd overall pick because they traded away Haason Reddick. The athleticism here, fantastic. He's 6'2", 254 pounds. And at 254 pounds, he ran a sub-5 40-yard dash. His first step, similar to Haason Reddick, is lightning quick. And I like the size, the vertical leap, the broad jump. That can factor in how explosive an athlete is. And the short area quickness, you need that as a pass rusher. His 10-yard shuttle was exceptional. At his pro day, he wowed a lot of people. His numbers at Penn State, somewhat of a concern here. And he didn't have that ample, large sack production with the Nittany Lions. And then before that, at Maryland, 4 sacks in 2023, 5.5 sacks in 2022. But sometimes you look at the quick first step. You look at the athleticism. The pressure number is pretty good here too. 26 in 2023, 48 in 2022. The eye test tells me a lot. A player who just jumps off the screen. He's going to have to hone in on some of his pass rushing skills, but on this team, I'm not saying he's going to have a minimal role like Nolan Smith did in 2023, but you have other players who can take a bulk of the snaps, and he can be a part of this rotation, and then in the future, really good player. In the 30 games played at the college level, he still had 11.5 sacks and 87 pressures. You'll take that in addition to the intangibles and the athletic traits. Who is your favorite Haason Reddick replacement? Talked about a bunch of players on this list, internal, external. Do we not name a player that you really, really like? If that's the case, share that name down below in the comment section. We always want to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe.